Today we're talking about how the INFJ can become quick-witted in confrontation or during confrontation, because this is something I hear all the time in the comment section. I hear it from my clients, people in bootcamp. This thing of, I have a confrontation with somebody, this person completely cuts me off or says something that is completely disregarding of me and my feelings, and I'm just in shock. I can't say anything at that moment, and then days later I have the perfect response. Minutes later I even can think of something and get upset. I have this conversation in my mind. What should I have said? What would be the best answer? And it's like so perfect. But when this thing happens, I completely freeze. I actually rather understand the person at that moment and just later get mad at myself, and I just want to change. And the reason for this is that, yes, we do have the capacity to come up with something that can hit back. Very often when you have a confrontation like this and you feel like the other person is not in the right, of course you can go through the arguments in your mind through your point of view, and you'll be able to say something back, not only in such a way that makes maybe the other person understand you, but you also understand where to hit them back. This is not meant as, okay, all we want is revenge or everything we want is to hurt another person. That's not the case at all. And I believe most INFJs don't even go for that. But we have learned through life that most people don't understand what we're about, and they don't understand that they have actually crossed a boundary if we don't react in a certain way that it will sort of burn. It's like you tell a little child, don't touch the hot stove. You say that 50,000 times, but when does this child actually stop putting their hands on the stove? Once they burn their fingers. And through our experience, we have learned, I know where to hit them. I know exactly where to show them. Emotionally, they have crossed a boundary, and teach them on a subconscious level that this is not a behavior you will go for. Think about it. This is not a place of, rationally explaining to another person why their behavior is not correct, because that is in 99% of the cases not going to work. The person is lashing out at you because of some emotional trigger of something that they feel like they can put on you. And we as INFJs have this capacity to create space for others. We're really people who can hollow ourselves out. And so a lot of people, narcissists or people who just feel like their anger needs to be put outside and needs to be put on other people, we very often become the target for that. And this can be very hard for us going through life. But the great point is, once you understand what's going on, and once you understand this is actually normal, it's not your fault, it's not that you did something wrong, it's just your kind of energy really attracts this, but that this in itself can be the biggest gift, right? Because once you understand how to spin this, how to change this behavior, not only are people going to, stop putting this on you, but they will learn really, really quickly that if they cross a boundary of yours, they will burn their finger. Because if you have this confrontation and somebody says something mean to you, and you go there the next day and you explain to that person, when everything is done, and you tell them, oh, by the way, I didn't appreciate what you said to me yesterday because this was, not kind, or this was very personal, you had a different issue. As I said, not only is that person not going to get it rationally, because again, it's not about rationality, but on top of that, this is not connected to their behavior. So next time, if they have the urge subconsciously to lash out at you again, they're not going to have this thing in the back of their mind saying, don't do it because you're gonna get burnt. This is really so deep. The only way to really make that happen, to have people actually protect your boundaries, unless the other person really knows that there's this invisible line that they're not going to cross, they cannot create a relationship with you based on something else. Like, I know that I shouldn't spit at another person. I know that I shouldn't cuss another person out or hit them or anything like in that regard. This is, not that this is part of my behavior to begin with, but I'm not even thinking about these things. Like, I know this is not something I should do. And I also know when it comes to, for example, people that I know, that there are certain triggers that I shouldn't use. Things that are just really sensitive for them, things that really make them sensitive. And I'm not actively thinking about it. I just know certain things are not to be talked about, not to be an issue of conversation. And those things might be things that I could talk to other people about without any problems. So again, why are we as INFJs in this particular situation? We are in this situation because we attract that very often. And that is why we have to learn how to be quick and quick-witted in that situation. So if somebody says something rude, if somebody says something that is not how we want that person to act, that we act in such a way that isn't defensive, that isn't coming from a child-parent dynamic, as in the other person is saying something like down to you and you just like bicker back as like the little child. And it's also not like this child-child dynamic where both are just immature, but where you actually step up, psychologically speaking, from an adult point of view, and you talk to that person on eye level and you say, that's it. That's not going to happen. So why are we in that situation so often not able to do that? We're so often not able to do that because we have been conditioning ourselves to be open to other people. We have been conditioning ourselves to not dismiss other people because there might be something you can learn from it, that this might be constructive criticism. And also, if you really think about it, there's always a reason why it makes sense, why the other person said it. And isn't that one of our biggest skills? That we're able to put ourselves in other people's shoes. So at that moment, we're so connected to that part of ourselves that is so clearly of, I'm giving that person space, I allow them to be themselves, I don't want to hurt them. And then at first glance, you're not even aware that your boundary is being crossed because you're not in that mindset of, I'm me, I'm expanding, and that person is hitting me. Our first focus actively is, okay, how does that person feel? Why are they acting this way? And we try to understand the situation, even on a subconscious level. The first thought is, does that make sense? And then just at second glance, we realize, no, this is not okay. I should have acted a different way. And that's when we really get upset with ourselves, and you know the story. But the thing that's really going to make the difference between you being somebody who's going to come up with an answer, a day later, or maybe even 2 minutes later, or being that person who reacts in that situation is if you actually change your identity. Because this has to come from a place of, this is who I am. There's no question about it. So if somebody would really say something very derogatory to you, or would say something that is so clearly not accepted, like there's not even a question about it, you wouldn't hesitate to say something in that moment. Like if a person, for example, tried to hit you, there's no part of you who would think at that moment, oh, they might be right. Maybe I deserve to be hit. Of course, we know there are people like this, and my heart goes out for them for being in that situation and feeling like this is okay. But, for argument's sake and for sake that, most people and most INFJs wouldn't tolerate that, let's use that example. So how do we become somebody who actually, honestly, deeply is connected to the part of themselves who knows, I'm not accepting this kind of behavior? In order to do that, we have to set up certain rules for ourselves. And these rules have to be obeyed at any cost. One of the things that I've learned, for example, is that it does not matter to me if criticism could be actually helpful to me, that it could be constructive criticism. If it's not voiced in a respectful, kind manner, and in such a way that I feel like I'm being nurtured into it, that I feel like somebody's actually trying to help me, there is no pushing me down, there is no, I'm pushing my stuff onto you, I'm becoming like this emotional garbage bag, like none of that. Only then I'm going to accept that. And yes, there are going to be cases where somebody might say something to me where I might learn something from it, but I'm willing to pay that price because we have to decide at some point, what price are we going to pay? And we as INFJs are in that situation where we have to make that choice. If we don't make that choice, we by default fall into the other category, which means yes, we might not miss out on understanding the other person better. We might not miss out on getting some information that might help us understand the world better. But we're also are open to these situations where people put their stuff on us, and it will take us some time to actually recognize, oh, this was not right. And this wouldn't even be so bad if it just was this one time, because you could say, okay, so this was uncomfortable, but I learned something from it. Now I just digest it, and then, the next time I know better. It doesn't work like this because the other person hasn't learned their lesson. They haven't burnt their finger yet. And so this is going to be a continuous cycle. And we as INFJs have to be very, very strict on this part. If we want the other person to respect how we want to be treated, we have to be okay with other people thinking we're sensitive. We have to be okay with other people thinking that we're the bad guy, that we're selfish, that we're not open to criticism, whatever it might be, but to make sure that our peace is intact at any cost. That is the most important thing. And I've experienced this many times in my life through my personal transformation. And, I see it with my clients. I see it with people from boot camp. This is a typical INFJ scenario. And so I really want you to ask yourself, how do you want to be treated? How do you want to be seen? And absolutely everybody who comes your way who doesn't treat you like this is by default not accepted in your mind. You will not try to understand them. You will not try to see it from their point of view. Again, yes, you might miss out on some things and you might say, oh, but then I may not be kind to others. And yes, maybe there will be situations where you have to sort of apologize and understand, yes, I went too far. But the alternative would be that you would just not be good to yourself. You have to make sure that your well-being is at the forefront, that you are good, that you feel respected, and that you demand this respect from absolutely everybody. And it's a practice thing. And the more you do this, the more you go through life like this, and you react like this by the first sight of somebody acting in a way you don't want to. This is typical for INFJs. They say, yeah, that person didn't really react the way I wanted to, but it wasn't that bad. I will allow them some things because I want them by themselves to get the fact that I'm just a good person trying to do my best. When you do this, you're saying the other person has to get my self-worth. I'm not demanding it. And if you're not demanding it, then it means that you don't believe that you deserve it. And one thing is for sure in this world, if you don't feel like you deserve it, nobody else can. A person might act kindly to you because they think, oh, she doesn't get it, that she deserves it, and so on. But this is an exception. And at some point, you're going to clash with that person because you don't believe it yourself. You have to say, I choose to be that new version. I choose to have this new identity. This is who I'm going to be. And even if it feels like a lie, the more you say, how would a person who believes that she or he deserves this kind of respect, how would that person go through life? How would they act in certain situations? And you actually do this, the more you actually become this. You cast votes for the person you want to be. And before you know it, you actually deeply believe that you are this person. And when that happens and somebody comes at you sideways, guess what? You're going to react quick, you're going to react quick-witted, and that person is going to know once and for all, oh, if I do this, I'm burning my fingers. Remember, if you're in a situation like this in your life and you want extra help, you say, I'm ready for the next step. I'm ready to transform myself, become a person who lives their INFJ epic life, then work with me one-on-one. Download the free poster to get an idea of how the 5 pillars work so you can apply them in your life starting today. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on why the INFJ is so extremely dangerous.